Hello and welcome back to another episode of Transport Fever 2. In this video, we'll be working on this passenger line that we're on right now by connecting up a loop between the cities of Santa Clarita, Montgomery, and Jackson so that we can simplify all of our rail lines to have just two simple loops between those cities instead of all of these single point-to-point lines between each one. So pretty much just an overview of what I mean by that is we have our station here in Jackson and Scottsdale, we have a station in Santa Clarita, and then we have two in Montgomery. So we have lines running from Jackson to Montgomery, Jackson to Santa Clarita, and Santa Clarita to Montgomery. However, because we have two different stations in Montgomery, those lines are completely disconnected from each other, and so therefore if people want to come down to this station instead of this one, they would have to come all the way down through Santa Clarita, transfer in Santa Clarita, and then come down to here. But realistically, they'd probably come up here to this station and then take the bus down here. But I think it'll just simplify a lot of things, make things a lot cleaner, and reduce the amount of trains overall that we have running on our passenger network if we can just figure out a way to connect this station and this station so that all of these lines can pretty much just become a simple loop, so we can have one loop running in one direction, another loop running in the opposite direction, and then that should solve most of our problems. Although there's not really any problems with it, it's just making things a little bit simpler. Okay, and so the main reason that we haven't done this before when we first set up this was the height difference between these two stations is just way too large. We can just simply grab a track, and we can see here, even just trying to pull it up as steep as it can, it's hardly even a quarter of the way up in elevation, let alone trying to make it all the way to this height. However, we do now have something that can help out greatly with that, with a underground station mod that I've found and added. So hopefully this will cut into the amount of height that we need to gain in order to connect these two lines. And also it'll help the city just sort of fill in this area so we don't have this train track sort of cutting through the city and sort of disconnecting this area and this area. And so obviously this is going to break a lot of things when we do this, so we'll just pause and delete this. Now, that does leave us with a pretty empty space here, especially since we recently redone this train station, but we'll get back to helping this blend in. But let's just continue this out by deleting all these tracks, and we'll want to go back pretty far since we'll probably have to bring these tracks underground a good portion before it even reaches the city. Alright, so now we have our train tracks pulled back pretty far. We got it right back to under this highway bridge. We can now come in and get our train station here. Alright, so now that we have our underground station grabbed, let's come over here and we'll line it up again with this bus station just so things above ground end up being somewhat aligned, or at least we have some sort of similarity between what was here before. And we'll want to drop this down a good bit, and so this can simply just be done by the usual raise and lower functions. Now we don't want to go too deep because that would just be unrealistic, but we can go a little bit farther down to help give us that advantage when it comes to the height difference. So I think maybe something like this probably works out pretty well. And so now you'll see when we place this down, we get this little pop-up which helps us just with figuring out how we're going to do this. But it's pretty simple really. Once you place it down, it should have the stairs necessary. So we just come into our street constructions, this underpass / underground entry. And then I believe we can place these down as long as it's within a certain proximity of the train station. We'll try it out. I haven't messed around with this too much, but let's just try to get this placed in areas that would make sense. So probably right here at this corner, and then we can go and place one back at this bus stop that we had before. And so we'll place this right about here. It is colliding with our collision tile, but that's perfectly fine. We'll just get this placed right here. It should work through collisions, so we'll get that one there. We'll come back and blend that in later. And then over by this bus stop, we'll get a slightly narrower one and come in, and we'll just get this one placed right about here. Alright, so after messing around a little more, building with collisions actually didn't allow it to sort of route properly to here, but now that we have both of these entrances popping up in this little pop-up, we should be able to just click this check mark, and that should finalize it, and we can see here how this is connecting these. I suppose we maybe could have added another entrance right about here, but I think this is fine regardless. We can now add streets to connect across here, so hopefully that won't be much of an issue anymore. But now we should be able to come back in with our collision tile, and getting this to fit properly is going to be somewhat interesting, since it will show up there. As you can see, if we put it underground, we might be able to get it just deep enough that it won't actually have any effect. So we'll try that. We'll just have to extend this. So we have that placed in now, and I believe we're ready to connect up to this station here. So before we get back to fixing the roads from here, let's see how our tracks align with this. And I think first we're actually going to try to connect down here, because this is going to be our hardest connection to make. So if we can't do it, or if we're close, we might have to lower this a little bit more. But if we can't connect this, I'm really not sure how else we're going to be able to do this without having some sort of really long underground sort of raising track thing. But let's grab our terrain tools, and of course we'll have to flatten out some land coming out of the platform here to allow us to turn. And we'll give ourselves a little bit of space so we can sort of curve around, and we don't have to sort of cut into this community here. I suppose we could try to go underground here, which might be a good idea. We'll just see where we sort of end up landing, and then we can fix the terrain later. So we'll grab our tracks, and we'll come out of this station. It doesn't matter how sharp that curve is. More what really matters is coming in here, and once we're sort of in this area, we can start to worry about that stuff. And so we'll be pretty much coming up at the sharpest slope that we can. Now let's just try this the simple way by just straight up dragging this. And we can see we are getting the too much slope pop up, but we might be able to adjust that if we sort of mess around with our slope tool. And it doesn't seem like we'll really be able to get that to work. So let's try maybe a little bit more roundabout of a way and see if we can gain elevation that way. Alright, and so after some messing around, we were able to get this, but of course we're going to have to redo these roads. So we'll have to delete this, come into our streets, and hopefully try to connect this without making a road connection. So we'll just lower this until it doesn't collide with the bridge anymore. Alright, so we got our roads back in here now. They're not great, but they do work. So we'll just go with it, because this is sort of very hard to work with, especially with our airport here, our main road here that we can't really mess with. So I think we'll go with this. Then we can enter underground right here. And let's see now if maybe we have enough height to reach the station. And it still says too much slope. However, I think we are pretty close. You can sort of see how deep we are here. And so I think maybe we just continue going straight for a little bit more, sort of at our max slope. And again, the longer we can make this, the more height we can gain. So again, still too much slope. However, we are going to have to start turning, or else we're going to lose a bunch of speed. So we'll keep it around 100 miles an hour. I think that would probably be a good equilibrium, because there's definitely not enough space for the train to fully accelerate, especially going uphill for a height like that. Alright, and so now after quite a little bit of messing around, we were actually able to get this to finally work. So really we just had to curve out a tiny bit and then come back around. Unfortunately, I think we'll have to do it the speed limits that we're given, but a low of 77 isn't bad either. I still don't think we'll really reach that, regardless going up this way. So now we'll just have to pretty much connect the tracks. And so we'll bring them side to side with each other like this, and hopefully now we should just be able to follow this around, and we can bring it all the way back down to our other station at the lower end of Montgomery. And of course, I don't think we want this to be a bridge, so we'll just set this to land, and then now we can just bring this all the way back in to the station here. So now we have those tracks connected. Let's connect up to our tracks over here. So we can just grab this one, and we'll pretty much just drag this straight to the station. There's not really a reason that we don't need to. And it looks like we stay above ground until about here, where then we actually run into a road crossing. So I think we'll rework this. We will just build this, but I think we'll redo this road to go over. So I think originally we went under in order to avoid the tracks. So we should be able to just drag this, and we might have to delete this road in order to get a decent connection. And so something like this works just fine. We can have that completed, and then we just need to bring our second set of tracks around, and then we can start to get everything set up. Alright, so now all of our tracks and signals are placed, so this should work now. It seems like this train is maybe lost or stuck. I'm not sure which one that is. So I think this one just needs flipped around and it should be good. So now this should all work out. We'll just simply smooth this all up. I'm not sure what's happening here at this tunnel entrance. So let's maybe just delete these and fix that. Alright, and so now we're pretty much at a point where we can let this play. And while we're letting this all play out, we can now come into our streets and we can remake these connections. So we'll bring this road across, or maybe we can bring it across and connect to here. And then we'll sort of simplify this a bit. Actually, I'm not entirely sure how we'll do this, because we definitely don't want that intersection there. So maybe we'll just delete that, and then we'll lock this road so that the city doesn't try to do any weird stuff there. And I think then we can bring this street across and connect there. And maybe we delete some of these roads. And I think for this, we'll just let the city fill it in. We'll add that road and then this connection. But other than this, I think the city can sort of handle it itself now. This bridge isn't necessary anymore. However, we will replace it with just a straight road. And I think that's what we'll do. So we'll leave this. The city will fill it in, grow it as it sees fits. And now we need to get over to here and make sure everything with our bus station remains sort of looking good. And so because the sole purpose of this road is pretty much just for our buses. We don't want any buildings popping up here, so we'll add a collision tile all along here so that roads and buildings don't get too close. And then we can come back through with our fences, and we can finish sort of the fence line around the bus stop. So I'm not too sure why it's being weird, but we will place this so that our fences just come to sort of the entrance of the bus stop itself. I don't think we necessarily need it along here, so we'll do that. And then our next priority is this bus, train station entrance. So we'll come in here, and I believe it's already pretty flat. I don't think there's really any other flattening or smoothing that we need to do here. But then really I think it's just a matter of painting in our asphalt. So we'll bring this in and we'll fill in all of this with asphalt. And so I think this works out pretty well. There's a little bit of sort of graphical stuff going on with where the tunnel entrance meets the street itself, but really we should just be able to fence this off so long as things don't go weird again, which it looks like it might. However, it seems like we still were able to connect this, so that is great. We'll just come in here and fix up the terrain around the edges. And I don't really think that there's anything more that we're going to add here. I think just a nice paved area for it is perfectly fine. We'll do the same thing for the other entrance. And this one, just because it's a lot smaller in scale, I think we're pretty much just going to pave the area in front of it, and that's all that we'll need to do, really. I think the buildings will fill it in and make it look a lot nicer once they do that. So we'll leave that up for the city to make it look good. But now, I think other than that, this all looks good, and we can move on to setting up these lines. Alright, and so we're going to set up the lines first, and then we'll fix the trains. So we'll use this existing one here, we'll manage the line, and after this one comes into Montgomery, it's going to come down to this station. So that connects there, and then we'll come over to our Santa Clarita station, and it looks like it already routes back into Jackson, which is exactly what we want. So we'll leave that and move to setting up the next line. And so this line, we're just going to get rid of the Santa Clarita one and place it back so it's heading in the right direction. So we'll add this station in, and then coming over to Montgomery, we'll start with the lower station here and then the upper station. And that should be able to reroute correctly. So taking a look here, it looks like everything is doing good. We'll just have to make sure that our trains get onto their proper tracks, as it seems like some of these have run into issues, but flipping that one around should fix it immediately. So then really, this one can go away altogether. And in order to do that, we'll have to sell the vehicles first, and then come in to manage the line, and then just delete it, because all those connections are already made with the other lines that we have, and I think this being a loop makes perfect sense. So now let's get into the trains running in each direction. And so as much as I like these trains, I just don't think they have the speed or capacity to do what we're asking of it now. So I think we'll use the ones that we were using before, these dual stocks, multi-unit trains. And so now we have all these, but I think we're going to get 2 more of these, because we did have quite a lot of demand between Jackson and Santa Clarita, but then pretty much we'll just have to copy this over to the other line. And so we'll manage these vehicles and replace them with the same thing, just for consistency's sake. And I actually think we will stick with 6 engines on each line, I think 8 might be a little overkill, because that's essentially 2 for every station on the line. And so switching these back down to 6 per direction should be good. We'll just have to monitor our stations, but hopefully now all of this will run pretty well and very smooth. And just taking a look quick at our Jackson line, it seems like we have a lot of people waiting to go to Montgomery, so hopefully this can help eat into that as well. And so before we move on from this, I'm just going to monitor this train as it goes up the hill, and just make sure that it's able to actually do what we want it to in a reasonable amount of time. But it seems like there's already a good amount of people waiting or on this train already. Hopefully that's heading the right way. I'm not sure, maybe that was just what it was carrying before and changing the routes messed it up, but looking at this, it's not really going below sort of 55 miles an hour, which I think is okay for this. Again, it's a tricky situation, so we'll just kind of have to deal with whatever we have, but I just want to make sure it's not too terribly slow getting up here. Alright, so this one's starting to come up to the station. I don't think it was too terrible, so I'm okay with leaving it. And we'll take a look at each of the stations, and we can see we have some people starting to pop in here. Down here, we're starting to get a little bit of demand over in each direction this way. And then, of course, here in Santa Clarita, of course, going into Jackson's going to have the most demand. So we'll see what happens with that. The only thing I worry about with sort of a loop station like this is the trains getting full when they come into Santa Clarita, and then they're not able to pick up any of this demand. But again, we'll just see what happens. Same thing up here with this train station. I'll just worry about it filling up on the line that comes into Jackson, but I think that simplifies things a lot more than all the separate point-to-point lines we had, and I guess now it might sort of make this whole mess a little obsolete, but we'll keep it separate because it keeps it neat and clean. And so let's do a quick check on our traffic layer and make sure that we don't have any huge buildups anywhere. Winston-Salem Albuquerque looks good. Over here in Stockton looks good. Besides right here, I believe this is coming into the city and partially out of the city. So maybe there's some intersections we can clean up here. So for example, I don't think we need this connection. And I don't think we necessarily need that connection. This one as well. And then we'll come through, and the street's already locked, so hopefully that'll help out a bit. The longer intersection lengths will really help with just making sure people are able to get into the city much faster. However, moving on, over here in Sacramento and into Modesto, it seems like our traffic issues have come back yet again. And so honestly, I have no clue how to really fix this more than just to take off the traffic lights. I think that's really one of the only few ways that we can really just get these people flowing around here. However, our issue still seems to be getting people into Modesto as fast as possible. And so thinking about how we want to go about doing that, I think maybe we just bypass this roundabout altogether. We'll have sort of a offshoot that allows people to come off and into it if they want to, but I think we're going to bridge over it, connect here, and turn this road into a main connection into sort of Center City Modesto. So in order to do this, let's just delete some of these roads. And we'll pull this back to where the bridge sort of peaks, and then we can we'll grab one of these country roads, and let's keep it level and see where this takes us. So we'll curve a little bit here, and then bring this pretty much straight across to connect into there. Now this does give us a bridge pillar connection issue. However, I think we can completely redo this roundabout. In fact, I think by adding this road, this doesn't even need to be a roundabout anymore. So we should be able to just continue on without it. But we'll bring this up and we'll connect it to here. And before we come back to that, let's just make sure we can upgrade all of this to be a 4-lane road pretty much all the way through the city. And so I think this is the extent of where we'll bring it, because things start to get really messy right here. So this seems like a good spot to end it. And I think actually deleting this road and forcing a left or right will work out pretty well, since this sort of plops us into the middle-ish area of the city. We will just have to lock this to make sure no other intersections get built there. And then the only thing I want to clean up here is this. I'm not sure why the city built it like that, but I think we'll pull it back even one more so we can sort of fix the overall construction of this area. And then we'll just bring it in somewhere around there. This can come across and maybe even connect all the way up to there. And that should be good enough. And so, as mentioned before, we're going to need to get a connection off of this bridge. And I'd like to maybe not do it like this, because I have a feeling a lot of our traffic's going to come in from this way. So I think we'll just do this. Or even we might even be able to just do this with on-ramps and off-ramps. And so we'll bring this off here, and we'll come and bring this up here if we can get it to connect to the road. For some reason it's not. I think we might have to do something weird to get this to work. Alright, and so now I think we might actually come back and put in a roundabout here. I still think maybe we can get one to fit right under here. And getting this one seems to work. Let's see if maybe we can go a little bit bigger. That still works. Maybe we can go one more larger. And that still looks like it works. So let's just connect these up. We can then get these connections made. Alright, so we'll go with this. Hopefully this works. And we should be able to let this play now. And actually we're going to turn off traffic signals here, because realistically no one would come up on this roundabout and turn left unless maybe some weird situation, but I don't really foresee that happening. We'll replace this roundabout with a highway. And I think we're just gonna let this sort of do its thing, and we'll see how the traffic sort of shakes out here. Alright, and so anyway, moving on from that area, looking around at some more of our roads. Birmingham seems to be doing just fine. Santa Clarita is doing pretty well besides this little section here, but it's not too big, so I don't think it's that much of an issue. We will just sort of have to keep an eye on it, I suppose. Montgomery has pretty much no issues besides its main intersection. Mesa and Downey. Mesa looks pretty good. The main road gets a little busy, it seems. Downey, on the other hand, seems to still be struggling with some traffic issues that we've been having for quite a while. Yeah, I'm not too sure how to go about this, besides, again, turning off more traffic lights. I really don't want to turn off traffic lights here, because that wouldn't make sense with just sort of the volume coming in here. But I think maybe for like streets like this, it might make sense, and this one here might make sense. Same for this one. But we'll leave this and see if that changes anything. Alright, and then now we're at the big one. Yet again, San Jose is a complete mess with its traffic, and I'm not really sure what is causing it. If we take a look at our destinations layer, there seems to be a clear desire for people to come down this road and into this area of the city. However, we do have this connection out of Downey, which somehow I suppose is not quick enough to undercut this connection, despite us making it less desirable and longer as we continue to come through this. I'm not really sure how much else we can help this. So the only thing I can think of to maybe help relieve traffic coming through here is this train station is completely blocking all traffic that we could get across the tracks here. So I'm thinking of maybe we move our train station up here and coming under the bridge, so that way we can have road connections coming across here and allowing the city to be more interconnected with this area. So let's just come in and we'll delete these. We'll delete all of this, as we don't necessarily need it. All this track, we can bring it back a good bit, pretty much all the way back to about here-ish. We can come back in with a cargo terminus station, and it seems like we're actually not going to be able to get it to fit in until we're on the other side of the bridge here. So we'll just do this and we'll connect up our roads later. But we'll come back even more, connect up these tracks, and that should function just fine again. We'll grab a city street and we'll get it to go perfectly flat across here, although it doesn't seem like it wants to do that. So let's just force it with the terrain. So now we get a pretty straight connection there. Let's see if we can connect up to here. And it seems like we can in some areas, so we'll do that. We'll find our cargo platform. This can simply go right at the end here. We'll actually extend the platform length to something like that. We'll add a storage building on the end of this, just like so. And I think we'll actually delete these and get our tanker cargo platforms in. So this will look a little more natural with what we're doing. And so pretty much we just have to come back, grab this line, and instead of coming to here, it's going to come out to here. And then same thing for the other line. Instead of going to, I believe it was, oh, I guess we messed this up, but we'll just have to place this back in. That'll go from here. And I'm not sure which one it went to. I believe it might have been this one. Actually, it wasn't that one. Actually, I think it is this one. So we'll connect there, and that should be our fuel connection made then. And of course, lastly, we have to remake this connection. So now that should work. And I believe that's this whole area set now. And so this maybe isn't a great placement for it, but it is probably the most functional. We can come through and smooth out all of this now. And we can see the city's already starting to sort of take back some of those connections. We'll make a few of our own just to help out. And hopefully that'll be able to help disperse people throughout this area a little bit easier. Another thing this means is that we can come through and extend this 6-lane road. Although it probably doesn't need to be a 6-lane road. We can probably dump it down to a 4-lane road once it gets into here and bring it out to there. But that should allow for more cars to come through that way. And really, I think that's pretty much all I can do in terms of inside the city fixes. So we'll see if that has any effect. This line of cars is very long. It does look like it might be getting shorter because this used to extend all the way into the city here. That might be getting better. We'll just have to keep eyes on that. But maybe this will help start cutting down on it. And I think once this line of traffic clears up, the rest of the city will clear up because that's pretty much holding up all of our other connections. So taking a last look at our street layer traffic, there's not really any other areas besides sort of the center of Jackson and Scottsdale, which we sort of expect to have traffic at this point. There is maybe some stuff that we can do, but I don't think we have time to get into that in this video. And so hopefully our trains have now had time to spread out along the line and space themselves out. Let's take a look at Jackson here. It looks like our numbers for our Jackson to Montgomery line is going down. It's down to 1,200 as opposed to the 1,500 it was at. This train's, I assume it's coming from the train depot up to Montgomery first before it stops at Jackson. But this one here I believe is coming in completely full, which is what we like to see. This one's completely full. Let's take a look at our stations around here and see what kind of demand we're getting. Of course, this one, very full, as we can see. This station, it's low and it's almost a 50-50 split, which is almost what we expect. Well, I guess it's not really a 50-50 split, but we have low numbers on each end, which is kind of what I expect, but it's still numbers that we're able to get around. And then our station up here, of course, this line is the one that heads into Jackson. So, of course, this one's a little bit higher, and I think this is all going well. I think the only reason this number is so high is because our trains are still coming from our train depot and they just haven't made their way around the loop yet. Alright, and so with that, that's going to be all for this video. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions or feedback, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.